Well, hello old chum, welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, and this video we're breaking down Fallout. The finale is now here, and episode 8 has a hell of a lot to talk about. Our heroes all convene on the strip, which is the title of the entry. It all leads into some big reveals and major Easter eggs, and I can't wait to break down the episode. Now last week we watched as the Ghoul and Maximus brave the Deathclaw hive to reach Mr. House. He's the only player in the game who can tell Coop where to find his family, so he was not only a key to Coop's future, but also a key in Coop's past. Using cold fusion, we saw as the ghoul turned on Mr. House. Not like that, you filthy stands. I see you shipping them on Twitter, you bloody filthy crazy stands. But yeah, he turned on Mr. House and brought him back. Now while this was going on, Maximus was stuck on the outside fighting the Deathclaw in a battle that spilt into Freeside. Meanwhile, Lucy escaped and then found Representative Welch's head being used for the brain control device. Her brother's also been knocked out twice and was at the mercy of the worst of the LinkedIn clout demons. Back in the vault, Steph had also been given Hank's box, but after being exposed at the wedding, she had to hide in her office. That should bring you fully back up to speed, and for the rest of the video, we'll break down episode 8.
You have a little smudge, a little sign. May I?
Now we begin with a top-down view of the Legion camps. If you'd seen the trailers though, then you'd know that Macaulay Culkin was going to return in Avengers Doomsday. In general though, the Legions descended into civil war, which builds off the back of the game. There the former Kaiser had a brain tumour that you could either fix or leave, and you also had the option to kill him in surgery as well, which was a nice little option there. Obviously though, the show's been avoiding saying what is and isn't canon, but the outcome for the character has been pretty much the same. He ended up dead, and at some point wrote down who his successor should be. Unfortunately, no one was able to read it, and thus we've ended up with 2 Kaisers. Now this is actually based on history, as Rome did have 2 Caesars at one point. Well, 4, but 2 were technically junior Caesars. But yeah, this was known as the treachery, which I've butchered that, but moving on. Treachery. This eventually caused lots and lots of problems though, and even led to the saying that 2 Caesars is 1 too many. We see this ego in full effect as the legate finally pulls the body in and gets the note. As he does this, he goes past the Kaiser he followed, who's already dead on the floor, and the note doesn't help much either. Upon opening it, it says, "I am Kaiser, I am the Legion, it ends with me." So yeah, not a good message, mate. That further plays into the egos. We see that ego then reflected in Macaulay Culkin's Kaiser as he kills the only witness. Also wondered if this was a reference to the senator stabbing Julius Caesar, as it's the first thing I thought of when I watched this moment in the teaser. I can't help but feel like the I am the Legion comment is also a reference to Satan. I am Legion is something the devil said in the Bible, and this devilish trick has got everyone fighting each other. It's interesting as well as in the game you can heal the Kaiser's tumour or let him die. Should you let him die, the legate Lanius takes over. So in the game, the succession crisis wouldn't have happened.
Caesar's death puts the legate Lanius in command now.
Either way, the legate takes the crown and then announces himself as the new Kaiser. His first command is to take New Vegas, and we see as they begin to mount up. Now we have spoken about the multiple endings in the game, and there's of course one where the Legion reigns supreme, in that they actually took over New Vegas and the Strip and basically enslaved everyone, which is an ending that we could get from this. The new Kaiser then says they will build a palace, Kaiser's Palace, which is a cheeky joke referencing the real-life casino. At this point we then get to the title, which is displayed in a Pip-Boy screen with the rad sound effect. It's in that classic green text, and I don't think they've actually done this one before, which is weird because we've had so many variations. It of course also plays massively into the next scene, and we rejoin Coop at the Lucky 38. The house always wins, and he's alive once more. It's the same thing that he said to Coop in the past, and is the name of House's quest line in the game. He talks about what some of the players have done over the years and how he's been poisoned, shot and stabbed. I did wonder if the poisoning was referring to the method where you can leave him to die in his chamber exposed to microbes, but I think this is just kind of a generic thing because of how many things the courier and, well, people in the wasteland could have done to him. The monitor in the top left is similar to the in-game map, and on the right we get one that looks like the local map. In the game he also had cameras showing him the Lucky 38, but that has all changed now. When you zoom in, you can also see a map of North America as well. He then tries to lock down the cold fusion, but Coop is quick and gets his gun in. Firing it would create a blast so powerful it might even reach other planets, so probably best not to, mate. Cooper then demands to know where his family is, and he's given a Pip-Boy running his own little Mr. House. Careful what you watch on that, and careful how you use that arm as well, mate. In the end, we do get Mr. House popping back up on his computer for a split second, but it does seem that he's going to at least live on in the Pip-Boy. I wonder as well if this is the case with what they used to do in Westworld when characters used to go remote and basically move their pearl about. This was a core control unit that meant the machine's consciousness could be moved elsewhere. It's how some was smuggled out the park, and it may mean that House can be picked up by someone else. God knows he's probably sick of being stuck in that tower, and though he is kind of left there in the end and also left in the vault, being able to be remote just provides brand new opportunities. It also gives Cooper someone to talk to, and we had a similar thing with the AI in Westworld where seemingly dead characters could return in other seasons to coach the characters in their mind, sort of like Teddy in season 4. In the game, Mr. House was inspired by Howard Hughes, and both are eccentrics who ended up living in Las Vegas. Now when it comes to his past, his half-brother Anthony basically screwed him out of his inheritance, and Robert subsequently went on to college. He studied at the Commonwealth Institute of Technology and founded Robco Industries. The tycoon also bought controlling interest in Repcon Aerospace and the Lucky 38 Casino. He used mathematical algorithms to get ahead and acquired whatever he needed to improve his position. Despite knowing when the world would end though, he had no idea who the mysterious player in the game was. Once the bombs fell, then his tech managed to stop a lot of them from hitting Vegas, and thus the city was saved. Just before the apocalypse as well, he was expecting an operating system upgrade which unfortunately never came. As such, he had to make do with a post-war inferior version. He was put in stasis and controlled his computer systems from his pod in the Lucky 38. Waking up from stasis in 2138, he then went about securing New Vegas. It's here that he then created the structure of the 5 families that all worked for him. It's obviously playing off how the Mafia built Vegas, which was touched upon in The Godfather and Casino. After searching for the chip, Benny then stole it from the courier who was tasked with delivering it to Mr. House. Now, depending on who you sided with, you could choose to give him the chip and upgrade his Securitrons and secure the Mojave for him, or the Legion, or the NCR. Coop is then told that everyone works for Mr. House eventually. This is an interaction that is just like the New Vegas game. Mr. House gives you missions throughout the game, from taking out rival factions to getting the platinum chip needed to upgrade his Securitrons. Even at one point it tells you that you have to subscribe. Here though, Coop is just like the courier, having brought House what he needs and now being told that everyone works for him. That is indeed true, as well as he controlled the families of New Vegas and ruled supremely. Everyone here is a victim of his machinations, and this was all fueled by his predictive algorithm. Now, Fallout deals with lots of characters hopping about from lots of different places, and when you throw in Canada and the rest of the world, it gets pretty crazy. Bear with me. I can't imagine that the characters' phone bills would be sky high if they were hopping around all these places, but that wouldn't be the case if they used today's sponsors, Saley. Their amazing eSIM plans make it so you don't have to worry about making international phone calls, texts, using data, or browsing the internet. I'm actually going to Spain in the middle of the year, but still, obviously, I have to run this YouTube channel or people will go crazy. Where are you, Paul? So calling back and forth with the editors, Zoom calls and so on, that could cost me a pretty penny if I didn't have a plan like this in place. If you're planning on traveling soon, then Saley is perfect for you. It's got your back, will keep your costs low, and once the Saley eSIM's installed, there's no need to install a new eSIM for each country. Like, I remember I went to Canada about 10 years ago and came back with a £500 phone bill, and it wasn't a good time. But yeah, this just keeps everything simple, and you don't even have to hunt around for Wi-Fi either. Saley will significantly reduce and even eliminate roaming fees with affordable eSIM plans in a growing list of destinations. There's also Saley Ultra, which is more than just data. This will give you VIP travel perks like airport lounge access, fast track services, priority support, advanced online security, and much more. Plus, there's also credit buybacks for people who travel all the time. There you can buy an eSIM plan and earn credits to use on your next one. So you'll pay less or even get it for free. Saley eSIM plans are compatible for iOS or Android devices and work with all smartphones supporting eSIM technology. With over 200 destinations, this is something you definitely need to add to your itinerary. Download the Saley app or go to saley.com/heavyspoilers and use the code HEAVYSPOILERS to get 15% off. That's 15% off if you go to saley.com/heavyspoilers and use the code HEAVYSPOILERS at checkout. If you're going abroad, you're going on vacation somewhere, just take the cost, take that burden off your mind to get an eSIM plan with Saley, and yeah, just enjoy the holiday. We then jump back outside of the strip and see the events unfolding from Maximus's point of view. The Deathclaws are starting to pour in, and Thaddeus arrives not very well armed, disarmed, bearing arms. That last one was alright, to be fair. Maximus's weapons then activate, and he tells everyone to get inside as we hear It's a Good Day by Perry Como. This includes poor Thaddeus, who thankfully survives until the end of the season. I mean, on one hand, no pun intended there, he didn't have to fight the strongest beast in the wasteland, but on the other hand, he did lose his fapping arm, and that's the one that he also uses to hit the thumbs up with. However, that did give us an insight into what he could actually be turning into. After taking the weird serum from the chicken lover, most fans assumed that he turned into a ghoul. Thaddeus also thought he was a ghoul as well, and even tried to hit it off with Coop. However, after showing him the mouth on his neck, even Coop was ready to shut down that theory time, and we also said that he could be a super mutant, but that was wrong as well. But I will admit, I'm a terrible YouTuber. With his arm falling off though, it gives us the best insight into what he's turning into. And that might be a centaur. Yeah, they're creepy and gross, and it might be the worst possible fate for Thaddeus. Now, they were created by the Master, who mixed all sorts of creatures, including humans, into a vat of FEV. Centaurs are like guard dogs, and sometimes they're also seen with super mutants. It is a very, very tragic fate for Thaddeus, who's incredibly likable, but I think he's just going beyond being a super mutant. And look, I'll admit I was wrong. I do think he could still team up with the Ron Perlman super mutant though, but in terms of being a super mutant, heavy spoilers was wrong. But in a way, I was right because I admitted it, and I'm such a likable guy myself. As the weapons activate, he then says hot dog, which is the same thing that Xander Harkness said before he got his head smashed in. It's a bit MCU, and the rockets aren't on the back in the games, although you can add mods to the armor, and I could have used this a few times myself. This feels like the Bethesda published Doom though, as the weapons remind me of the Doomslayer's suit as opposed to Fallout. I do wonder if it's also a stand-in for the Fat Man launcher, which is what I would personally use against a horde of Deathclaws. The barman from the Wrangler also doesn't want to help and continues this idea of not caring who's in charge as long as they don't charge him taxes. Either way, Maximus then stands up and battles the beast single-handedly, Single-handedly, Thaddeus,
Move this man!
The people have survived all these years despite only being separated by an easily destroyed fence. Now they're just hiding in buildings though, and even taking bets on the fight's outcome, which feels very, very Vegas-y. The scene does kind of become like a Western staple where the town citizens hide while a shootout or duel's happening in the centre. Game fans will also notice that this is similar to Fallout 4, and in that game, after waking up from stasis, the main character heads to Concord to try and find their son. Naturally, you get roped into a fight to kill off some raiders, and after acquiring some power armor, a Deathclaw bursts out from the sewers and you need to kill it with a minigun. Last week they talked about how you always end up where you started, and to be fair, things have kinda come full circle. He was once a kid looking up to someone wearing power armor and then even got it on it himself. However, his view of the Brotherhood was vastly shaken when he wore the armor himself. Now though, he's once again showing what it really means and that we can be heroes just for one day. I think it's all about accepting responsibility though, and trying to improve the wasteland beyond just handing over cold fusion and hoping that it sorts itself out. Maximus's entire arc this season's revolved around him simply just being a weapon and a kind of blunt instrument that just gets pointed at things and told to destroy them. Here though, he's making the choice to save someone instead of just being a puppet. Had he not gone to the Lucky 38, the gate would still be intact and the Deathclaws wouldn't have noticed the huge settlement on the other side. So again, this is showing he is more than just a grunt and willing to make a tough choice and put his life on the line. Picking up from last week, we then rejoin Lucy.
And the mainframe implants new ideas in their heads.
Now, getting Representative Welsh to do this actually makes a lot of sense. She's a politician who couldn't be bored and even tried to infiltrate the Lucky 38 corporate party. Pre-war, there were lots of protests over corporations ruling the world as opposed to elected officials. Hank explained to Lucy that both pre- and post-war governments all had their own problems, from high taxes to expansionist tendencies. Hank's now shown Lucy though how the chip can turn the most savage Legion soldiers into a docile office worker. And maybe it can turn a Screen Crush viewer into a heavy spoilers fan. We've cracked it! I believe that Hank was inspired by Mr. House though and followed his ideology but took it to the next step. If everyone's docile, then there's no variables that will cause war, famine, or suffering. As such, humanity can then be easily predicted by a mathematical algorithm. When meeting Cooper in the toilet, House mentioned how everyone's trying to solve the same problems at the same time with a multitude of solutions. So I expect that House recruited Hank just like he tried to do with Cooper, as their ideals are almost the same. Like, even the stuff with Welsh's head is similar to House. There his body's in stasis and his mind's connected to a computer using the same helmet that Welsh has. We then get a good look at the logistics of the chip. I did wonder if this was also a sort of Matrix thing where a mainframe controls the delusion. However, it appears that Welsh's head is just used to program the chips, ready to be attached to a Wastelander. Welsh constantly says "kill me," which also feels like a nod to the Alien series. Characters constantly said that if they'd been impregnated by facehuggers, and one of the Ripley clones also said it in the lab in Alien Resurrection, and it's something my editors constantly say every fucking day. It's also similar to Bud from Season 1 being prominent in early flashbacks only to end up as a robo-brain. Except he did seem to choose that fate. It's so grim though that even after the apocalypse there's a Vault-Tec device left like this. Lucy initially tries to act chipper and says they can patch her up, but in the end she finally puts her out her misery. Interestingly, she uses a crowbar, which is something that House mentioned was used to attack him earlier on. This then shuts down the machine and we rejoin Norm. Guy must have had a headache after being smashed like the like button twice, and though he has an ally in the group, things don't look good. The rest also want to execute him for going against the company and imitating a manager. We see him being dragged towards his doom, and there's more graffiti on the office walls as we can see "fight apathy or don't," which is very apathetic. Pushing Norm's button to the elevator as she protests, this then unleashes a gang of rad roaches. Feels very like The Mist, and pretty much all of them get killed after refusing to let Norm in. What I love as well is that the roaches are the simplest and easiest enemies to defeat in the game, and it's really funny that they're quite deadly in the show. And even the chicken lover struggled to kill one earlier in the season. The rad roach attack also reminds me a lot of the opening of Fallout 3. There was a rad roach infestation in Vault 101, and this caused a lot of chaos at the start. I think it also speaks to just how useless these guys are, that they're getting completely torn apart by the easiest enemies in the game. We then jump back to Coop and sees he moves through the tunnels under the casino. House then rattles off about how he rigged everything in Vegas, but the wild card came with the demon in the snow. This is what made him realise that there was also another player, which now we know was the Enclave. Now, the President of the United States actually went missing 6 months before the bombs fell. Presumably, now that he has cold fusion, he'll depart for the Poseidon oil rig. That was an Enclave HQ based on the west coast that was pretty much safe from the blasts. There was also the White Springs bunker where members of the Enclave stayed, but they were cut off from the rest of the world. Now, in Fallout 2, the Enclave planned to use the modified FEV to wipe out everyone on the surface of America. This would have allowed them to then take over with these and rebuild, but in the end, they were defeated by the player character. The group then resurfaced in the capital wasteland and aimed to do a similar thing by poisoning the water supply. Anyway, we rejoin Maximus and see as Thaddeus bets on his buddy winning. Max's arm is also breaking, and it's kind of like in the game when your parts start to deteriorate. You can see that the torso is red, which indicates it's broken, which is the same thing you see in game. The atomic bomb and then proves how little I care about anything other than money and then starts up the bets. Luckily, my guy Thad has the caps from his operations that we saw earlier in the season. Meanwhile, Lucy learns the truth about her father. Hank did say he was in someone else's stomping ground in Vegas, and we learn he's been an Enclave acolyte. The Enclave were actually the ones who sent the Deathclaws to Vegas, and my headcanon is that it was actually thriving post-Fallout New Vegas, and like Shady Sands, the Enclave didn't fucking like it. Hank then explains that both he and House wanted to create robots, but had a little bit more personality. In the game, House had to rely on people to do his bidding outside of the strip, and this included machines. If you side with Mr. House in the end, he appears to you in a Securitron after the final battle, which is something that reminded me of him following Coop around on the Pip-Boy. Now when it comes to Hank and his plan, this is where Welsh came in, as she was well-meaning and sweet. It's pretty much how he raised his daughter, and I did even wonder if he might replace Welsh with Lucy. I mean, I wondered it. But yeah, it turns out that Welsh has an ISTP personality type. That stands for introverted, sensing, thinking, and perceiving, and they're basically known as being self-motivated, non-judgmental people that always hit the thumbs up. But yeah, because of this, it's not necessarily her political ideas that are put into people's heads, but simply her personality type. At this point, House berates Coop for handing over cold fusion, and it's at this point we cut to the airport. Coop and Bob are heading back home, and this is via McCarran. Now this is actually the same place that the president used to arrive in Las Vegas. It was based on the real-life McCarran Airport in Las Vegas, but since the game's release, the airport's been renamed to Harry Reid. In the game, it was home to the NCR and even featured a quick and cheap way to reach the strip, which basically involved bypassing the wealth check at the gate. Bob then references going to Bakersfield again, and Cooper did suggest quitting acting and moving there in Season 1. Post-war, this became the site of the Necropolis, which is a major location of ghouls. Vault 12 was actually used there as an experiment to see what happens if a vault door didn't close, and I do wonder if I did cross my mind if that's how Cooper got infected, but moving on. There's also the mention of Colorado, which is where Bob seems to have ended up. The Legion did manage to conquer gangs and tribes in the state, and a promo for the show, it did mention the president possibly living under the mountain, which could be season 3. This might be at the Chine Mountain Complex though, which is a real-life bunker and command center that was featured in Fallout Tactics Brotherhood of Steel. So I wonder if Bob learned more about the Enclave and then went there while Coop went to Bakersfield. Hank then arrives with Steph and we learn the former proposed. What is a Vegas trip without an impromptu wedding? It's clear that Steph's just marrying her way to the top though, and we've seen her constantly moving vaults, getting weddings together and murdering to get where she wants. I love how Ain't That a Kick in the Head also plays in the background by Dean Martin, and yeah, just perfectly explains how she got in the vaults. This of course is also a song that featured in New Vegas, and since then it's been kicked into my head. Knowing Steph as well, she probably manipulated things in the vault and obviously woke up after Hank, but then whether she moved about or the love just fell apart once they realised it wasn't real, all things that they could explore in season 3. But yeah, it does fill things in and adds an even weirder relationship to the vaults. Now this is obviously quite the bombshell as well, as Hank also married Rose, aka Lucy's mother. Now I do kind of think that maybe both Steph and Hank went into Vault 21 and were unfrozen at different times, and while Steph was on ice, Hank married the Vault-born Rose, who then gave birth to Lucy and Norm. Lucy, of course, then went on to become best friends with Steph, which is a bit weird to think about, and her dad's secret first wife was her best friend all the time, which is a great twist and also a great use of the timelines. Coop and Bob then walk past his Vault-Tec billboard, which says, "You never know and don't wait until it's too late," which is very reminiscent of the one from Fallout 3. There's also a poster for Maxis the Magician, with these posters appearing throughout the game. They then walk past another poster with Bobby Apartment that also says "You never know." These not only represent the two sides in this war, but the omens kind of play into Cooper's ignorance and how he put faith in people doing the right thing. But you never know whether it was the right choice until it's too late, which obviously plays into Cooper's whole story. Throughout the seasons, we've obviously known that he does get divorced from Bob and is also exposed as a pinko. This was all simply the Enclave discrediting him, and I do wonder if he's going to see the president in season 3 and maybe make amends for the mistake that he made in the past. We know the Enclave are secretly controlling Vault-Tec, as Coop essentially stole the cold fusion and then unknowingly gave it right back, which fits in perfectly with the themes of trust and free will. He thought that he couldn't trust the companies, so he trusted the government, thinking they can't be as bad as wanting to cause the apocalypse. But they're all the same thing, it was all just an illusion, and evil people at the top are ruling everything. But yeah, to stop him digging further, he's exposed, similar to the other actors in the McCarthy era. He's arrested by the Un-American Activities Committee, which is something that existed in real life and arrested a lot of actors during the Red Scare. Meanwhile, as this is going on, Hank shows Lucy the miniaturized device. Fallout famously has no miniaturization, so I don't know if fans are going to be annoyed or what, but realistically, I can see why they did this. He then talks about the little scar being the only indicator, and this becomes such a great reveal later on. For now though, he just wants his little girl back, but Lucy of course resists and calls him insane. The Legion guy who grabbed her then returns and repeats his previous actions to support his new master. Think for season 3, there's going to be lots of suspicions. Westworld's obviously had stuff in the past where it's like, is this guy a robot? Is this person not a robot? But that also ties in perfectly with Fallout as well. Fallout 4 had a heavy focus on finding out who was a robot and who wasn't. The Institute used synths to replace people and spy on the surface, and I think we're going to get a very similar thing with the device and how Hank sets it off. Hank's plan here, just in general, is very, very similar, and he wants to control people on the surface as they basically thought themselves superior and humanity's only hope. Much like Hank's thinking and reasoning. Now, if you want to support the channel and look good doing it, then definitely check out our merch store right below the video. There we have our full range of Fallout shirts, from our Brotherhood one to our Atomic Claw one, our Ghoul one, and also our Pinup one. We also have lots of big discounts on them, and the more you buy, the more money that you save. Makes a massive difference to the channel as well, and thank you to everyone who's picked one up. Cooper then arrives at the management vault. It looms large in the foreground, and I love how he looks small and almost ant-like in front of it. It's different to how we saw when Hank arrived, and there he looked up and it looked like he owned the place. For Coop though, it's almost like he's just intimidated by the presence here. Our boy's hoping for a reunion with his family, which also means another face-off against his biggest fan. Coop not only drugged Hank to steal cold fusion, but last time they met, Hank received a scar across his face. Outside, Maximus is really struggling though, and he gets a hand or foot from his friend as he ends up losing his armor. Lucy is almost at a loss too, as the chip is nearly put in the back of her neck. Luckily, Coop arrives and gives the choice to Lucy. fits in with the themes of the game and how the player has several outcomes and paths they can travel down. This is also a repeat of the Season 1 finale where Coop arrived and shot Hank, which happens again here. Eventually she sticks a device in the back of Hank's neck and makes the man who's destroyed so much just a docile puppet. I did even wonder if Hank was expecting this, as we see him turn away and almost show her his neck. And yet the guy knows his daughter, and it kind of sets up what he does later on. So once again though, a moral dilemma for Lucy. Should she allow him free will, he will just keep escaping and finding new ways to make life worse for the Wastelanders. Putting the chip in his head is also something she has to do, as this leopard can't change his spots. Now, reflecting the idea of evil father figures, we see Maximus remembering his family and the good man his dad was. Having lost his armor, he picks up a roulette wheel and grabs a spear, becoming much like a Roman fighter. This inspires those inside to stand up, and though they don't save their town, it does change their mind state. It shows that even without the armor, Maximus represents the ideas that he initially believed the Brotherhood had. Though they prove to be false, he can still embody that, and then we see he's saved by the NCR. After Shady Sands fell, Max was saved by the Brotherhood and grew up thinking that they were right for the Wasteland. But now again, he's come full circle and the NCR have saved him, and you always end up back where you started. Love this scene though, and I audibly gasped as the Ranger fired the sniper rifle, which is just like the opening scene of Fallout New Vegas. Marching through the town, they've come to take the Strip, which obviously plays into where things will go next with the Legion. They wanted to wipe the NCR out earlier in the season, so I believe that's where things will lead to next time, as we see the army marching towards the city. They'll likely try and massacre everyone there, but I do think that the NCR will beat them. We'll talk about the wild card air that pops up later on, but yeah, it's going to be a very, very destructive war. We also see posters for Danny Parker and Joey Baxter, with these both being posters from the game. The NCR then take it from here, and we see Lucy marching her dad to the surface. Rather than taking him back home to face justice though, they instead decide to sit and talk. She wrestles back and forth between putting him down, and I love how we also get to see her little minging finger on the gun. She has changed beyond this though, and is definitely more accustomed to now seeing the shades of grey. She definitely is still a good karma character, but there is definitely something going on inside where she's wrestling back and forth. Hank then reveals that the surface is actually the experiment and that he's sent out his boxes. Calling her his pet name Sugar Bomb, he then activates the button, and this of course controls his own. Now this kind of retroactively does make me think that Hank did indeed show her his neck, and all along he basically wanted this to be his fate. This forces Hank to become the father that she thought he was, and he basically Shutter Islands himself to stop himself after accepting he was a monster. Now, although his mission has been completed, I do wonder if he also wiped his memories so no one could get them out of him. But yeah, whether they can restore that, take out the device yet for Season 3, we don't know, but Lucy leaves him looking like a very sad, lonely man. Poor man that. As we mentioned earlier, Fallout 4 had a major plotline where synths were pretending to be human. Hank here has the sleeper agents following his orders from before the war, and this is something that will no doubt be expanded upon in Season 3 with the Enclave. Lucy then leaves and we see her walk by a sign for the Gomorrah along with Top's Casino. The Top's Casino was one of the strip casinos that you can visit in the game though, and there it's run by one of House's top men, Benny, who was voiced by the late Matthew Perry. It was actually a tunnel down in Vault 21 and it allowed him to get in and out of Vegas. Vault 21 is of course a casino on the strip, and it used to be a vault, which yeah, obviously still kind of doing that now. We also know that post-war Mr. House cemented the lower levels of the vault to stop its residents from becoming self-sustaining and possibly finding his body in stasis. Maximus then arrives through the gate and the pair head to the Lucky 38 after finally being reunited. Rejoining Steph, we then see that her wedding's gone almost as bad as Lucy's in Season 1. Everyone's banging on the door and basically saying death to the managers. Once again, Vault 32 is in a state of civil war and revolt. The initial occupants learned they were cattles for Bud's breeding program, and the whole vault population died. They even killed the overseer and wrote death to management on the wall, and this cycle's happening all over again as they chant the same slogan. Now in exchange for water, Betty of course handed over the box from the safe from behind the great Todd Howard's painting. This was Steph's last chance to keep control of the vault, but unfortunately hasn't gone well. We then see she opens up the box and this contains a sick as fuck black Pip-Boy. Looks banging that, mate. Also love how the Enclave are supposed to be a secret but have their logo all over the Pip-Boy. When she loads it up, we also see that it was copyrighted in 2076. She also cannot find a holotape, and holotapes were used in the games to give missions and major lore dumps. It's also notably different to Siggy's Pip-Boy that we saw in Season 1, and this is reserved for the higher ups. Steph then reaches out to the Enclave for help, calling herself Hank's wife as she asks for Phase 2 to be initiated. Now, this was mentioned by Ronnie and is the Future Enterprise Ventures. He tried to quote-unquote control the investors, which I believe are now the Enclave. Also, just found it funny how she's in a wedding dress to marry someone else and basically pulling rank to get access to Hank's power, which is kind of like how she got married to get access to his position in the vault in the first place. Now, we discovered that Steph is secretly Canadian. Fucking hell, what the fuck? In episode 7, we did see how she escaped from that internment camp and was told not to think of them as people, but as Americans. But I love them, me. I think they're fantastic, and thank you for always hitting the thumbs up. Now, in universe, Canada was a major victim of the resource wars. With tensions rising, China invaded Alaska in 2066, which led to the war that Cooper fought in. America then rushed to defend the state and exploit Canada's resources to do so, as the pipeline from Alaska to the rest of the US ran through Canadian territory. The country was then annexed in 2072 after years of being referred to as Little America. So I don't know if the Enclave's aware of this, and it would be such a great curveball to see her working against her masters. We then join their base that we talked about earlier with Siggy. An iBot is flying around, and this is of course from the games. We also see a computer starting up, and I love that the graphic of the stars and stripes has the Enclave E in the middle. On screen we can also see Robco as well. Steph's message comes through and is then translated, but unfortunately mate, if you look at the orders, the second line's redacted. But Phase 2 is indeed initiated, and both Hank and Norm's radio frequencies are picked up as well. We then finally see the outside of this base, which looks to be in the mountains. This might be Colorado, as they've had numerous major bases in the game, such as Raven Rock, the Poseidon Oil Rig, and the White Springs Bunker. I think this will likely lead into the FEV though, and that might be unleashed on the vault. Now, in case you're unaware of what the FEV is, it all started pre-war with Westtech. They created something called the Pan-Immunity Variant, which was a miracle cure for the new plague that was sweeping the world. However, things didn't go exactly as planned, and thus the FEV was born. It had lots and lots of side effects, including radiation immunity and also evolutionary superpowers. But things went south very, very fast, and Westtech accidentally contaminated Hunterville's water supply, which created a town full of freakish beasts. Now, different strains mean different results, and you might end up as a hulking genius beast, or the kind of person that writes first in the comments even though they're second, and I know it was you, I know you did it. But yeah, that's how super mutants ended up roaming the wasteland free from the control of Vault-Tec. That is kind of where the vaults come in though. It was the radiation that was mutating things in the first place, so you'd need humans that hadn't been exposed to it. Beyond that, you'd also have a vault in the control group. So it means that the vault dwellers are the perfect test subjects to test the FEV on. I do even wonder if this vault might even become super mutants and then go forth with the mantra to kill management. This could lead to some twisted stuff and maybe some vault-on-vault action against Betty and her gang. There's kind of even an uprising there as well, and we could have defectors from the other side to let them in. Anyway, we see as Norm goes to check on Bud's buds, and it isn't good. We can't show it because of YouTube censorship, but there's lots of bodies, limbs, and a nice little Pip-Boy. Norm's one mate though has survived, having used a screwdriver on the Radroach. It looks just like the one you find in the game, which lets you pick locks. He then carries her outside in a cart and begins to make his way across the wasteland. Outside we can also see a Vault-Tec salesman truck, which we saw earlier in the season. Expect Marjune will return and be furious at her Radroach farms destroyed. Coop then makes his way to where his daughter and wife are located. In the past we then see Coop take the call, and this is a warning from Mr. House. Turns out Coop was hoodwinked and he's not brought the world the safety he thought. To make matters worse, he comes across the chamber and finds that his daughter and wife are missing. Also, love how the phones are all ringing at once, which calls back to House saying that he rigged everything in Vegas. Now, Coop's story is very reminiscent of Fallout 4, where you search for your missing son, while Lucy's just like Fallout 3, where you look for your father. In Fallout 4, the Institute stole your son to help with stabilizing their Gen 3 synth program as he was infected by radiation. Here though, it looks like Bob just left of her own accord. Season 1 of course opened with Coop at a birthday party as the bombs fell. It was a shocking opening, and over the course of Season 1 and 2, we wonder how he got separated. He was with Janie when the end of the world began, but at some point he ended up alone and ghoulified. We also saw how in the past he uncovered the apocalypse was somehow being manufactured. As they say, you always end up back where you started, and we see as Bob's gone to Colorado. We have mentioned Vault Zero from Fallout Tactics, and this was the nucleus of all vaults and spied on every single one of them. So if Steph is indeed asking for the FEV to be spread into Vault 32 and 33, then it would be authorized from the central source. So I do wonder if the place Siggy escaped from was indeed Vault Zero, or it could be the Enclave Vault Research Control, which was mentioned in Fallout 2. Now, though this is a bit of a gut punch, we actually see what happened with them. Cooper took the fall to cover for Bob, and the note seems like she knew that Coop would arrive eventually. It's an invitation, and it's pretty clear they got divorced so Bob could save face. House then calls him an idiot for betting on Hope, which is what he did with the president and later the vaults. However, Hope carries him through once more, and he leaves House behind and decides to head to Colorado. I love the way that they just kind of told us for 2 seasons that they got divorced and everyone was assuming like things ended badly. However, it shows why Coop's been looking for them all this time and has never let them go because, yeah, the love was clearly there still. Meanwhile, at 38, Lucy and Maximus then come across House's control room. I love as they look out over the wasteland and we can see the sign for casino just says sin. The Legion are arriving though, and with them they bring war, and war never changes. Now as they march we can see a billboard for Sunset Sarsaparilla as well as one for the Ultralux. But welcome to the wasteland, and Lucy and the pair then hold hands and look out in a moment that feels very reminiscent of Fight Club. To the song This Is Worth Fighting For by the Ink Spots, we see the characters resolute in the fact that they know they've done the right thing, even if it leads to loss. House also flashes on screen for a second, so I do wonder if they'll be able to get him back or maybe reconnect the Pip-Boy from the vault. His body must still be in the casino as well, so I do wonder if this will come into play in Season 3. Also says signal lost, but in the game it just says connection lost, which looking back at that, does make sense that he wasn't actually dead, it was just the connection that got severed. Looking out over the wasteland, we then also join Coop in Dogmeat. Not sure how he got him back, but he has rejoined him from the strip. We then get the credits and see lots of posters for the NCR. They're very reminiscent of the ones used in World War II as well, including the loose lip sync ships one that we see in the middle. We also have warnings about eating irradiated food and one for women of the NCR. There's also one about how the NCR bring democracy, and it highlights how they now currently own the strip. These posters were also featured in the game, and yeah, just nice seeing them in the credits. As we pull out, we then see their flag and the Atomic Wrangler sign as well as one advertising free vials for ghouls. This keeps them from going feral, and it's what they gave to Coop earlier in the season. Rodriguez also mentioned the rights for ghouls were something very important to the NCR, and it also makes sense as you wouldn't want to make more feral ghouls. There's also a stand to join the NCR, and we pull out to see they've fortified the strip. However, there's also signs that the Legion have occupied the land as well. As we go past the entrance, we see several crucifixes as well as their flags. I think this hints to how the land will be carved up and split into a no man's land that basically leads to the Civil War situation they had at the camps. Looking at the history of war, you know, we have stuff like Stalingrad where they literally carved up the land the same way. At points, opposing sides were even fighting over rooms, and I feel like that's going to be a big thing in Season 3. Where hope lies though is in the Rocky, which is a sign we get as we close those credits out. That's where Coop's headed next, and I hope he gets his daughter and wife back. This kind of reframes everything though, and explains why Bob was cool with Janie going with him to the party in the first place. Scarily on the board is also a super mutant meat bag. The Ron Perlman super mutant did say that a war was coming against their creator, so with Coop heading towards the Enclave, I expect that will be expanded upon in Season 3.
Quintus, the Unifier, is dead. Quintus, the Destroyer, is born.
Anyway, the ride isn't over yet, and we get a post-credit scene that brings back some wild cards. The Brotherhood Civil War is still ongoing, with us seeing how bloody it's been thus far. The Doctor administers a stim pack to someone's gruesome leg as Dane then walks past. They then walk past a dude in power armor being patched up, which looks like the opening to Fallout 4. As we hear, Quintus the Unifier is dead, and now Quintus the Destroyer is all that remains. There's also a secret weapon ready to be used. That is Liberty Prime Alpha, which is something that we've kind of touched upon in other breakdowns. Did wonder if they might have Liberty Prime in the season due to the connection to House. However, I always argued that they would have dropped it in the trailer because it's a big money shot, but yeah, it looks like we'll be getting it next time. Now, in case you don't know, Liberty Prime is a gargantuan robotic combat platform that appeared in both Fallout 3 and 4. Clocking in at over 40 foot tall, it packs energy beams and nukes that make it extremely deadly. It also loves to deliver anti-communist messages, yay!
Democracy is truth. Communism is death.
The machine was originally designed by Robco and General Atomics to liberate the land from the Chinese forces, however it had lots of bugs and wasn't deployed in time. But during Fallout 3, the Brotherhood discovered and restored the machine in order to fight the Enclave. Though it was destroyed, it was then later rebuilt for Fallout 4. Last seen in the Liberty Reprime mission, it's a big return for the franchise. It's going to massively change the landscape and mean that Quintus' side is going to easily come out on top. It also sets up these guys as having one weapon that's going to likely make it so they can take over the Wasteland with ease. Bit of a curveball, it does require massive amounts of power to activate and keep running, and I think Quintus may need to get the cold fusion device to power it. Due to its AI also being used to identify and eliminate communists, I do think it's going to cause some issues for Cooper. He's likely still seen as a pinko and will probably have to deal with it at some point. But for now, it's a massive reveal and I can't wait to see it in Season 3. Now when I seen the scene playing out, I did wonder if they were going to bring in the Mojave chapter of the Brotherhood. After their disastrous defense of Helios 1, they became isolated in the Hidden Valley. However, I think the show is just using the chapter we've had so far in order to keep the continuity. Interestingly, the Commonwealth also have their own Liberty Prime, which just walks around the base depending on who you side with. But yeah, that's something they could also encounter next time, and yeah, lots of variables as we head towards Season 3. Anyway, that wraps up the season, which I think's been really good, and I'm surprised that it hasn't had the hype that the first season did. I think because it was released around the time of Stranger Things, that kind of sucked all the air out the room. And even when it was over, people were still theorizing that it wasn't over. So the conversation was very much focused on that and taking up everyone's energy, going back through like 5 seasons of TV to find the time that Aliva was red, but then it changed to grey. However, I think the show's been really good every week and has had some massive reveals, some great game callbacks, and lots of world building and lore expansion that's made it really fun to watch. Beyond that, the characters all work really well as well, I think, and they all evolve in really enticing ways that give them great arcs. I know the Vault stuff gets crapped on as being the worst part of the show, but even that stuff was stuff I really enjoyed. The cast is of course very large though, and the writers have juggled 2 timelines as well as multiple points of view, which I do think can sometimes be a detriment. There's some characters who get storylines and a lot of focus in an episode, and then you don't see them again for like 2 or 3 weeks. I think because of this, it felt a lot less focused than the first season, but that might be because that was dropped as a binge. This viewed weekly has meant that the discussion on Twitter and Reddit has been very fun to watch and take part in, as theories are crafted each and every week and fans spot niche Easter eggs that you wouldn't necessarily get the time to focus on if it was just all dumped on the same day. I think the real victim of the big cast though is New Vegas as a whole. We never really got a deep dive into a post-game timeline with the Legion, NCR and the Cons. What made the game so beloved is the depth of their characters, the player decisions, and the story outcomes because of it. The showrunners deliberately made it Vegas to what the New Vegas canon ending was, and I get what they were going for by showing that no one won, but it also left things, I don't know, a bit underdeveloped, if that makes sense. Because they don't have an outcome from that, we're not really able to delve down each pathway and explore what that would have been, or take things in a concrete direction, because they're constantly like, well, this might have happened. But yeah, I still enjoyed it, and at worst, Season 2 was a whistle-stop tour of member berries for fans. Viewing it through the lens of a New Vegas fan, I can see how you'd think things were a bit of a letdown, but maybe that's from me expecting a New Vegas 2 in a TV show form, or something that kind of nails down exactly what's happening. Through the eyes of someone who's potentially just watched a TV show though, I think Nolan and co have created a superb slow-burning mystery that had me gripped each and every week. They've utilised what made Westworld Season 1 so great and managed to make a simplified version of that in the Fallout universe. The timeline balancing is excellent as well, and to have this many surprises, even in flashbacks, is a credit to the writers. Especially when it's stuff that you kind of already knows happened, but yeah, they just tease it out and you don't know exactly how it is, and even then the big reveals are quite shocking. So overall, really enjoyed it, and thank you for all your kind words over the last couple of months. Working Christmas and New Year's with us in Stranger Things, it seemed like it was going to be a right drain when they announced the dates, but you guys have kept it constantly fun, added to the conversation, and we've all come to an agreement that the costumes have been excellent every week. Everyone agreed. Super mutant costume, everyone liked that. Either way, that wraps up the video, and massive thank you for watching. Please drop a like and also leave a comment with your thoughts on not only the episode but also the season as well. And what was your favourite costume? If you want to follow us on Instagram as well and keep up to date with all the costumes and what we're doing, then make sure you check us out at Heavy Spoilers. Did you know as well that members of the channel get early access to videos, and if you click the join button you get at least one breakdown a week before anyone else. Costs just 99 cents a month, and yeah, lots of early content, so huge thank you if you do that, and hopefully what we give back is worth the 99 pence a month or cents or whatever. But yeah, if not, thank you as always for watching this video. I've been your host Paul, you've been the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.